So now we're going to get into talking about a lease. What is a lease? What are some of the components of the lease? What makes the lease so important? What things do I need to look for? These are all great questions to ask when you're looking to sign your first lease for your first off-campus apartment. So we'll start with what is a lease. A lease is a legal binding contract between you and the landlord. This contract is typically 1 year, and the standard is from September 1st to August 31st. The lease may also have an addendum portion, which are other terms or expectations added to the lease that the landlord expects you to follow, and by signing you are agreeing to follow. You should always read the lease very, very carefully. The lease outlines all the terms and conditions of the relationship between you and your landlord, so you are expected to abide by all of the different rules and regulations and all the things that are put through the lease, and you're expected to understand them. So we're going to look here through the standard form apartment lease and just take a peek at some of the components of the lease. So on the first couple lines there, you see name, address, different contact information, when rent is due, how much rent is due. The most important things to note here is that all of the blanks should be filled in before you sign. Make sure everything is accurate too. Accept or make any changes before you sign. I always like to tell a funny story about when I went to go sign for my first apartment. The real estate agent had accidentally moved a decimal point and had originally had our rent at $29,000 a month instead of $2,900 a month. As you can imagine, I made him change that very quickly before we agreed to sign the lease. These things are important for you to keep your eyes peeled for and look for things like different changes that need to be made or any errors that could have been by no fault of you or the real estate agent alone, just an honest mistake. You need to look out for these things because once you sign, you agree to these rules. Could you imagine if I signed to pay $29,000 a month for my small 4-bedroom apartment? That would not have worked out for me very well. So just to keep in mind, make sure you are reading things very well and you make any changes before you sign. One other important thing to look at is that all names are on the lease. This is especially important considering the no more than 4 rule that we have in Boston. So this rule states that no more than 4 undergraduates can live together in a single apartment. This is very important because if, say, you live in a 5-bedroom apartment and there are 5 undergraduate students, this is technically against the housing codes. So if someone were to find out from the city that you were all living there, you could get in trouble, and if your name is not on the lease, you have no rights. So kind of remember, no name on the lease, no rights. So make sure that your name and all of your roommates' names are on this lease before you sign it. It just helps make sure that you have all your rights as a renter and that nothing's going to be taken away from you. So now I hope you learned a little bit more about what a typical lease looks like in Boston, and you're able to answer any questions and confidently look through a lease and say, I know what I'm signing.